reliable cannon ignition right now on Pirate Firearms and Reloading. Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. So today I have all sorts of crafts all over my reloading bench, and you're probably wondering a little bit what's going on. I wanted to talk about something I make myself to ensure we get reliable ignition in some of the replica cannons. As you can imagine, rather large powder charge. It's not a very nice experience when they don't go off. There's a lot of sitting around and waiting, and you don't have burning embers going on and a hang fire. So to get a reliable ignition is very, very important. The technique I now prefer is the traditional method of using a linstock. A linstock is probably what you've seen in the movies. Yeah, a cannon is ignited from a slow match, and that's attached to a linstock. So I'm not going to quite fit the whole thing in camera here, but this is the end of the pole. All in all, it's probably about, 12 feet long, I'm guessing. Has the sort of goat horn style one. There was just single ones, and around it is slow match, and that side's actually been lit before. So you would touch the slow match on the top of the vent hole, sometimes just with powder in it, sometimes with an actual primer, and that's how you fire the cannon. Right, and the use of linstocks was common not only on like naval cannons, but also on in-field artillery as well. So it was basically an instantaneous, the cannon fires, you can move on with your day. So I want to stress that if you, have acquired a cannon that hasn't been inspected or, x-rayed or whatever, I strongly suggest you do. This even applies for little miniature ones and that, there's plenty of companies out there making little miniature reproductions. In fact, I have a quarter scale Napoleon, and you can actually see the small scale coherent mortar here on my workbench too. So you want to make sure they're safe before you're actually really, really close to them. We pretty much parade or cannon salute fire, and when you salute fire, obviously there's no projectile in it. Sometimes we will put a really, really thin plastic water bottle in there, full water bottle, just to give a little bit of back pressure in it, or a larger sound and a better cloud of smoke, and so on and so forth. So the best thing you can do if you are unsure or you want to be 100% safe is pick up some cannon fume. This is the Hodgson stuff. Obviously there's a variety of stuff out there, but the thing I like about this is actually waterproof, and it's a lot better. So the typical green safety fuse you'll come across usually burns about 1 centimeter a second. So it's very controlled. Once you've got it lit, you know roughly how long everything's going to take. This stuff is a lot more rigid, and it's actually a slightly larger diameter because of that waterproof coating. However, its reliability is so much better. I've had so much trouble with just the standard green safety fuse, which is typical of what you'd see, say, on a firework or something like that. If that gets broken, twisted, even though like it might still be holding together, you might actually be able to see where it's bent, and you'll have delay in that, or it will go out and all sorts of things. And don't get me wrong, if you've got a little bit of rain, game over. That stuff is practically useless. So the Hodgson stuff is very, very good for that. If you are going to do a gun salute and you want to fire it the correct way, linstock's the way to go. But there was 2 methods used traditionally. One was just pouring some powder in the top of the vent hole, and when I describe vent hole, I will use the little cohern here. So the vent hole, you might call it a touch hole, something else, but it's traditionally called a vent hole, and that's where it would be ignited from. And so a lot of the times a faster burning powder like 3F would be poured into that hole, and it would be done that way. The big problem with that is if there's wind around or rain around, that powder's just going to get blown away, and you're going to be back into the same problem all over again. So what I do, and it's not my original idea, plenty of other people do it out there. In fact, one of my favorite videos on this, Nox Artillery did one here on YouTube, and it's to use a cardboard drinking straw. Don't use a plastic one, even if you still can get them, because the plastic will melt and you'll be in a world of trouble all over again. And basically these just insert into the vent hole, obviously on a full-size cannon, and it basically shoots a jet of flame down into the main powder charge within the barrel, and it ensures a reliable ignition. And I'll throw some photos up shortly of what actually happens when you touch one of these off. So they're super, super simple, and I'm going to show you how I make them. So you need a packet of straws. Now, depending on the size and all that, a drinking straw may not fit. If you've got something smaller like this little cocoon, you may have to get a little more creative. But for argument's sake today, we're going to take a standard drinking straw. You don't have to make them the full length of the vent hole. You can have them slightly shorter because they will still work. Right, and we're going to roughly eyeball that and cut it in half. Now what I'm going to do, with the end that I cut, I want to leave the preformed end the way it is because it's nice and open, round and clear. And I'm just going to come down a little bit, and I'm just going to make just some long cuts in here. Usually 4 is plenty good enough. Now, here's where I've seen a few variations of this idea. Now, if you're wondering where this idea actually comes from, this is exactly what would have been done, except these were like a little pewter or sometimes tin, pretty much any sort of metal they could get their hands on really. Small tube with almost like a funnel top on the top, and they had a little spike in the bottom, so you'd push that down through the vent hole into the powder charge, and it would open the little powder bag at the same time. The problem is if you have a line of guys firing in an artillery battery, they would go flying off, and just very so often somebody would get impaled by one. Probably not the best idea. Whereas cardboard is a lot safer. Now, these little discs are cereal box cardboard, and I just chuck them on my laser and cut them out to the right size just because it is easier. Now, what I find to make these as well is just a little mini vise like this, just to hold everything in place. So I just close it up a little bit like that. I'm going to sit that guy in there. I'm going to take the old trusty hot glue gun. So you can use like PVA or other types of glue as well. You want to be careful not to get it down the main hole in the straw. I came a little close there, probably a little bit too close to be fair. We'll see, yep. Okay, so I'm going to have to cut that out when it's set. So we're going to make 2, just for argument's sake. So same thing again, just give them a quick cut. And this is just basically to attach the straw part to the top washer, if you like. These are obviously nice and disposable. They are biodegradable. Keep all the same deal again, just take the hot glue, run it around the outside, just roughly, doesn't matter too much. I have recovered plenty of these over the years too, and they can be reused, probably only once, but there is that option too. Obviously this is just cardboard, so reusing them is not truly the end of the world. And of course, being cardboard, they will break down. So all I do now is I just come along and just trim the excess of those little tabs off. Right. So off camera, I just cleaned the hot glue out of the center hole in that. As you can see, the ones I took a little bit more time to make are a little bit smoother around the top. Not super critical at the end of the day. Once again, if they're not perfectly straight either, not the end of the world. So that's the basis of our little cannon primers going on. Now is where we need to add some black powder. Now with this, I'm going to be using 3F. 4F is good as well. Obviously 4F being faster burning than 3. 2 is a little too slower burning, and I find it's actually quite difficult to get it to ignite with the linstock. So my suggestion is 3 or 4F. What we're going to do is I've just got a little container here, a former powder bottle, and I'm just going to pour just a little bit of black powder there in the bottom. Now, at this point, you can use white glue or PVA. I choose to use the glue stick because I'm hoping it's going to be less messy. Generally speaking, it works out to be. And the Elmer's one being purple, dry and clear, allows me to see that I've got the whole top. Then all I'm going to do is dip it in the powder like that. You will get little flakes of powder falling off. That's not the end of the world. And if you obviously knock it before the glue has cured, that will also be a problem. So just like that, reasonable coating on the top, and all this button on the top is doing is giving you a larger target to get the end of the slow match onto. So now we've done that, here comes the interesting part. So these are self-adhesive labels. That is the code if you are interested in them. Longer ones do work slightly better. But what I tend to do is just take two labels, sort of overlap them a bit, like that. And then you want to cut them up the middle, depending on their size, of course. Like so. Now we're going to take the sticky back off and dip the label in the powder. So basically this is just a medium to stick the powder to and ensure we get a reliable lot inside the drinking straw. So now what you're going to want to do is try and sort of fold it kind of in half as best you can. Once you get it started, it's easy from there. So we then take our little tube, our drinking straw, and we very, very gently feed it in the end like this. Just keep feeding it, just watch where the two bits of label overlap. Sometimes they'll want to pull apart. And we're going to feed it all the way up until it's just kind of sticking out at the top. And then to make it nice and tidy, we will just cut the end off like that. So there you go. That guy is all ready to go. The glue stick cures pretty quickly, so just try and get as even coating as possible. The evener the coating, the better these will work. Obviously, if you have a gap, you're going to run into trouble. You also want to make sure when you do have this fully inserted that there is actually a clear path through as well. You don't want them blocked off and restricted, otherwise it will not work effectively. So I don't know if you can, I can see light with my eye. I don't know if the camera's gonna, okay, so long story short, I can see light through the straw, and that's the most important thing. So the point of the straw obviously is it channels a jet of flame down through the vent hole into the main powder charge. Now you will have to separately prick the powder charge bag. So we use tin foil. It stops with obviously burning embers in the barrel contacting the powder charge, and also the barrel gets swabbed between shots with a damp like swab to also extinguish any of those burning embers, so you do have moisture in the barrel. If you were to use paper or something, that can wet your powder charge, not substantially enough that you'd probably have a firing issue, but just enough to affect it and leave, you know, unburnt damp powder in the barrel, which kind of defeats the purpose. We want all of it to go off, and preferably all at once. So yeah, a vent pick is what you use. Basically, it's a spike that you push down through the vent that pierces the little tin foil powder bag that we've made, and then pop the primer into the vent hole on the top, make sure everyone's ready, eyes, ears, so on and so forth, and back a safe distance. And then somebody goes up and puts the end of the slow match on the primer, and you have a cannon salute. So hope you learnt something today. You got any questions, hit me up in the comments down below. I'm going to do a few more little videos on you know, salute firing cannons, and just trying to teach you a few little skills to help you keep safe and also get the best out of it. Appreciate not everyone has access to cannons. Check your local laws. Some countries are a lot more forgiving, but you know, it's still a dangerous thing at the end of the day, so use the utmost caution. If you are worried, safety fuse, get yourself way further back and use that, and go from there. So until next time, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and happy shooting.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on anything. And if you found this video helpful, please share it with your friends. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments below. Catch you next time.